Well, let's get started here. Good morning, good afternoon, Mitadru Dey. Welcome to the Sharpen podcast. It's so good to see you as we've connected before. But first, I just want to welcome you to our podcast here.
Thank you so much, Kirby. It's been an honor, and I'm excited to talk to you and your audience, which is young professionals. And I'm really honored to be part of this podcast and looking forward to talk to you and share my experience and also learn from you as well.
Well, I have so enjoyed getting to know you and learning from you. You have some fascinating stories, and I just loved your transparency of how you've approached learning in different areas. So we'll dig into that today. But before we get started, for our audience that is meeting you for the first time, tell us about who you are as a person.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Mitadru. Yeah, it's a difficult name, and which I used to hate when I was a child, but then I started enjoying how different people mispronounce my name, and I took it as a fun. I grew up in a small town in India called Madhyamgram, which literally means middle village. And I had a humble beginning. My parents and younger brother still live there. Before pandemic, I used to go there twice a year. While growing up, I remember with everything else, I always wanted to be a good human being. I don't know why. That just thought came to my mind, like trying to help people. And my parents helped me a lot because they never told me, do this, don't do this, because I see a lot of parents, they guide and restrict children. But my parents are, this is your life. We are always with you, whatever decision you make. So that gave me a lot of confidence and courage to make different decisions. Sometimes I failed, sometimes I succeeded, and that was a great experience. Born with our household back in India. My life changed when I moved to New York as part of my work 7 years back. Until then, I was pretty much focused on work. But when I moved to New York, two things happened. One, I noticed that there's a lot of work going on with communities. And I realized that, wait a minute, I need to do something to help communities because I have the resources, not really material resources, but intellectual resources, which I can use to help people. And with that also happens that I saw the difference, the resources in the US versus resources in India. And then I took it up as an objective to how I can share some of the best practices and structure and system in the US education with the people in India. So that I have been working on. So outside my work, I've been always involved in different projects to work with young professionals about education, about communication. Second thing which changed my life and the direction of my life 5 years back was I almost accidentally came across a video about productivity, and which turns out to be a spiritual awakening for me. And I started asking fundamental questions about life. And then again, that also, changed my course. So my life revolves around 3 P's: productivity, purpose, and peace. So that's how I revolve around my life at work and off work.
No, well, thank you for telling us too a little bit of your story. I loved hearing about your parents, and they sound very remarkable. So I hope you get to go back home really soon to see them. But what a framework to have, right? The 3 Ps of focus in your life. And I'd love for you, you mentioned whenever you transitioned to New York for work, tell us a little bit about your experiences in the workplace.
Sure. When I was in India, I used to talk to my clients and stakeholders via phone, which was tough, especially for someone like me who did not study in English. So that was a battle when I was in India, struggling, shaking, well, just, talking for even 5 minutes with my stakeholders, working in a multinational company. However, when I moved here, it was a new culture, so far from India. And I was in a room with senior managing directors and executive directors, and I had to present. And my manager noticed the nervousness, anxiety, and stress in me while I used to present. He called me one day in his office and he said, I think you have good intention. You need to work in your communication, because I have noticed that your feet are shaking, you are trembling, you are sweating. Why don't you join Toastmaster? I said, what is Toastmaster? It sounds something to do with drinking. She said, no, it is nothing to do with drinking. It is to improve communication. It's a friendly environment where you can practice your communication. So I joined our company Toastmaster. I didn't do much. I was so afraid to go up and speak for a few minutes. I left it. Later on, some of my colleagues and friends told me, why don't you visit other Toastmasters? And I ended up visiting several Toastmasters, including the current club
Wow.
with United Nations. And again, that also a turning point, because people were so gracious, encouraging. They had much more improved communication than me, but they always used to encourage me. Even if I knew that I was not doing well, they used to encourage, and I kept going. So that definitely is a milestone when I moved here in terms of working on my communication.
Yeah, well, and thanks for being real with us too, because if we're all honest, those presentations or those phone calls, I mean, I think all of us get nervous, right? And to your point, that practice and that intentional development, especially as young professionals, is what allows us to develop those different muscles, and one of those in communication. So thank you for being real with us on that, because it is, sometimes as a young professional, you said in the meeting room or the conference, and you see someone like yourself. I mean, if folks are watching through YouTube, they're probably like, what do you mean you were nervous? You're on a podcast and you're, just, it feels like you're hanging out with us, but you're sharing these stories. But it just goes to show that it's through that intentional development, which I know is a passion of yours. You shared that specifically for young professionals. And Mitadru, you've been involved in some really cool work with young professionals in India. Can you tell us more about that story? Yeah, what is the backstory? How was that kind of laid on your mind and your heart?
Absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, when I came here and I saw here the education system is so structured, there is a counselor in every college, which is
Yes.
unheard of back in India. Well, growing up in India, we were told you need to become either a doctor or an engineer if you want to be successful in life. I became neither, but that's not the end. So I made it a point every time I used to go back to India during my vacation, I used to visit my college and I used to talk to students just to encourage them and say, I was sitting at that bench where you were sitting. I had no clue that one day I will even leave my hometown and work in cities like Mumbai and Bangalore in India. I mean, that was not even a distant dream. And now, see my situation. Now I'm in the US, working in New York for a big bank like JP Morgan and Chase, and it is possible.
Yeah, that's cool.
I did that for almost 3 to 4 years, and I realized that okay, I'm going there, I'm speaking to the students, but it's not working because they said, oh, all good, all fine, but what happens next? I'm not giving them tools or a structure to be successful with communication. So that thought in mind, I said, okay, what is there in the market? So I started talking to people, reaching out to different organizations, trying to figure out, okay, what is there to help students and early career professionals, especially people who did not study in English, because you have two problems, right? One challenge is that English is not your first language. You did not study in English. So you are like almost like shut down. You don't know like what you're going to say. Second, after college, you starting a new job, it's a new environment that gives you added pressure. So it's a double pressure for students and professionals who did not study English. So my goal was, okay, how I can perhaps create a module which would help young professionals and students to be successful. It could be in a corporate, it could be in academia. Um, I tried to collaborate with few organizations, but I wasn't successful. So I said, okay, let me start a project. So I hired a professional who is from India, Nidhi. I told her, I am giving you this project as a freelancer. You need to come up with a structured program, and you need to deliver that to students in India. And we worked for a year. We did not go anywhere because we were not sure it will work or not. And then pandemic hit, and I had more time because I didn't have to commute for a couple of hours every day. So I said, okay, I took it up as a project last year.
There's your productivity background kicking in there, Mitadru.
Yes, because I knew that I can do two things. One, I can just be stressed and think about what's going to happen in pandemic, or I can utilize that time productively to help people in India. And I should not say help. To me, it's more like an obligation and duty for the country and the universities who gave me so much, because of which I'm here today. And in that process, some of my colleagues, friends, they said, we want to help you. I said, okay, great. So we formed a team. Some of my friends and my old manager acted as a mentor. And then we spoke to some of the HR in India and asking, like, what are some of the challenges? So we created a module for eight courses, starting from like basic grammar, sentence structure, to how to write email, how to speak in a meeting, and then resume writing, interview skills. So we ran this program this year from end of Jan to end of March for a couple of months, every Saturday evening. So we held that call via Zoom, where we had around 10 to 15 students with Nidhi, who created this program with me. She was, again, it was first time for her as well, but I took it as a chance. And she was also nervous. I said, this is first time for me. We'll do it, because all that matters is what's your intention, and you will figure it out. And your intention will reflect in your communication. So that's very important. So we did that. We got a good feedback, and it was, since I work in corporate, so it was I tried to put a structure in place in terms of having a PowerPoint presentation, having a module, having an open communication for, had a survey at the beginning, had a survey at the end. So we did that. And we are planning to launch another program. However, I don't know if you're aware of the situations in India with COVID is pretty bad, it's heartbreaking. Yeah. So I'm putting a pause at this point, but my goal is to pick it up next year.
Well, first of all, congratulations. And I love that you had this mentality of, we're not exactly sure what this looks like, but our intention is to help shape young professionals in India. And that will, you had the clear sign goal of what you're moving toward, and that will come through. And it sounds like it is. And I would love for us to link your resources. I know you mentioned a pause for a while, but I would love for us to link that in show notes. For young professionals that are listening to Sharpen, and English is their second language, what is your encouragement, some of your favorite resources, or just what would you share today? Because it sounds like you've really thought through very practical, helpful courses specifically for that audience.
Sure. Several things one can think about. First of all, practice. I think we can't beat that. So you need to practice. You need to talk in English, even if people at your family or home, they are not talking. You need to try. You need to find friends with whom you can talk in English, even if it's an incorrect English, but you need to start speaking. So that's number one. I definitely recommend Toastmaster. A lot of people pay either thousands and thousands of dollars for communication, but if you really follow the Toastmaster education, it is very structured and thought about. that will definitely help you, because what Toastmasters does is, it will help you prepare a speech. Then you know, okay, how to start a speech, what's the middle part, how to conclude. So you have a structure in place, because Toastmaster will teach you that by its education. And then you have something called table topics, where you need to speak impromptu for 1 to 2 minutes. And again, there is a structure in that. And one structure I've learned recently, and I'll encourage people to think about, is that when someone is asking a question or you're presenting a topic, think about 3 things. One, what is this topic? Like 1 or 2 sentences. Second, why this is important. Third, give some examples. What are the next steps? So I'll give you an example right now.
Yeah, please do.
Right?
This is awesome.
Say I'm going to talk about networking. To me, networking is very important. So I'm starting. I'm very excited about networking with professionals, young or older. It is very important, because in today's world, if you don't network, you may lose out opportunities. And also, you never know, this will give you next career break when you start networking with people. So as the next step, I recommend everyone to think about how you can effectively network, especially on LinkedIn, in a way that people will respond to your message. So again, this may not be the perfect way I put it, but I tried to put a structure in place. So so anyone can think about, when answering question, we just write it down, like what, so what, and then what. That structure.
What, so what, then what? No, I love the simplicity, because that framework, whether you are in a setting where you're speaking in front of a crowd, which is very that's probably not very likely these days, but even with you and I right now, we've talked about some things you're passionate about, but this is almost like a Toastmaster experience, right? You're like, oh, we kind of talked about that, Kirby, but I wasn't expecting that one. And you're showing us, you're modeling how to engage using that framework. So that's super helpful. You mentioned this in your example just now, but it sounds like too, another area you speak to for young professionals in general, but specifically young professionals in India in your coursework, is the power of networking. Can you share a little bit more about what you're learning and what you have learned, as well as what's your call out to young professionals?
Sure. I did not know power of LinkedIn until I had an interview with one of my team members 4 years back. I finished the interview and I said, do you have any question? He took out an A4 size paper and asked me 20 questions from my LinkedIn profile, which was amazing. I had no clue LinkedIn was so powerful that time, and I decided I need to take it seriously. So that's how it all started on LinkedIn. So some of the things I suggest, one, you need to look at your profile, whether it is professional or not. Think about having a professional picture. Think about the headline that you use. That is very important. Again, in a nutshell, if you get one sentence to talk about yourself, what do sentence contain? So those words should be there as your headline. And then obviously talk about your summary of your career, or even if you haven't started your career, you can talk about your experience as a student, because you must have worked on different projects. So you can talk about that. And that also shows who you are, what you are looking for. And then obviously you can list down your experience. One thing I use for networking on LinkedIn is that when you reach out to someone, don't just send a connection request. Write a note, because LinkedIn gives you this option called add note. So write a note like why you are connecting.
That's good.
Right?
Yeah.
I'll give you 3 examples. So let's say I don't know you, Kirby. I live in India. I just found your name somewhere. I said, okay, I want to connect with Kirby. One option, I can just go to your profile, view your profile, I hit the connect button, and you get a request. Option 1. Option 2, I review your profile, I write, hi Kirby, I'd like to connect with you. Option 2. Option 3, I write, hi Kirby, I got to know about your Sharpen podcast. I listened few episodes. I see you help young professionals. I am just starting my career. It would be great. I can connect with you. Now you tell me which one you will accept.
Oh, for sure. The third option, and it tells me that person, we're going to connect on something really valuable for both of us, right? So and it's just that it's that soft touch, to your point around communication, that means a lot.
Yeah, and one thing, one note of caution is that, okay, and let's say for you, Kirby, your background in Kentucky, you're a mother, you're a professional, and there could be some interest, but one should not force oneself to say, oh, I am interested. So it should
Sure.
be genuine. I cannot say, no, I know how it is to be like, raised in Kentucky. No, I don't have that experience. So if I can say I can relate to that, that's wrong. So again, you need to be genuine in your approach. You just can't fake it to say, oh, and people will catch it if you try to fake it and try to embellish your words in such a way, saying that, oh, no, you and I are on the same page always. No, that doesn't work. So be mindful about what you are writing, and it should be coming from your genuine self.
That's such a good reminder. And I've shared with you, the reason that we wanted to connect was you shared your work with young professionals and some of your story, which we learned more about today, which is awesome. But that stood out, and clearly it's genuine. So very good call out when connecting with folks, because the BS barometer is very strong to your point there. Yes. Yeah, no, I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear too. You've modeled it in sharing the backstory of the coursework that you've created. You've mentioned it as one of your 3 guiding pillars. Tell us, Mitadru, what you're learning about productivity right now, and how that did become such a game changer. And you've shared with us this already, some examples of that, but that sounds like a particular area that you've been a student of.
Sure. This all started 6 years back when I was at work one day after lunch, feeling a little sleepy and also thoughtful at the same time, which is odd. And few thoughts came to my mind. I said to myself, why I'm not productive as much I should be? Why I'm not productive for 8 hours I'm in the office? Why I keep thinking about different stuff when I'm writing an email, or I'm in the middle of preparing a PowerPoint presentation and random thoughts coming to mind, and I stop and start doing something else.
Yes.
That started bothering me in next few days. And I realized that these questions will not leave me until I find answers. I did the easiest way, went to Google and searched how to be productive. There were thousands, maybe millions of search results came out in front of me. And I started watching some YouTube videos, articles, but nothing was giving me satisfactory answer, though they all were good, but it was not just giving me the answer I was looking for. One day in one of my friends group chat, I got a video where someone spiritually inclined speaking in a corporate setup about productivity. I'm not religious, and I ran away from religion and spirituality, though being born in India. So first instance, I said, no, I'm not going to do that. Mm-hmm. And on the same day, on my Facebook page, someone shared the same video. I said, okay, let me just check it out. So I just started watching the video, and this person asking everyone how much you are productive. People are saying, I think 2 hours, I think 4 hours, I think 6 hours. So different answers were coming out. I felt relieved because I was not alone. There are other people asking the same question.
Right. Yes.
So which was great. I said, okay. I started continuing the video, and then he asked, do you know why we are not productive? No answer. He said, we are not productive because either we worry about the past or get anxious about the future. We are not at the present. He said, yes, I totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
Then he said something very interesting, which I never heard until that day. He said, do you know from whom you can learn your productivity? Pin drop silent. He said, you can learn productivity from your child. Your child doesn't have as much strength as you, but he or she is jumping with energy morning, noon, at night. After your day's work, you come back home and say you want to relax, you're tired, and your child may say, Daddy, Mommy, I want to play. Come on. And he said, relax, wait, let me take a rest. Why? Because a child doesn't have worries of the past and anxiety for the future. So they are bubbling with productivity.
That's so good.
That literally changed my thought process. There was one problem. I did not know who this man was. There was nothing. However, I was so motivated. I kept on watching that video for 6 months every day on my way to work. After 6 months, I was frustrated. I said, okay, I need to find this person, who this person is. I literally typed on Google, worries of the past, anxiety for the future. And then his interview, his name is Gautam Jain, who is my philosophy and spiritual teacher, came up. And I realized he conducts weekly classes in Manhattan next to the train station I use every day for my commute. I started joining his class. In his second class, he mentioned a quote from a French philosopher. He said, everything has been figured out except how to live. So that changed my life. I said, yeah, I mean, I really need to think about my life. And in terms of obviously productivity, it all started with productivity. Then I started learning the wisdom, and I realized our productivity will increase when we think not about ourselves, but think about the organization you're working for. So we need to set a goal or purpose which is bigger than our individual goal, like promotion or bonus, but what I can do for my team. If you do that, your anxiety level will drop off because you are not thinking about what will happen to you. Now you're thinking about the bigger picture. B, people in your team will cooperate with you. And with the cooperation, your productivity will multiply.
That's a great
Third thing will happen, your management will notice that, because most of the time, if you think about as a manager, people come, I need a promotion, I need a raise, I need this. Now the management is saying, oh, here is someone who is always thinks about the objective for the team and the organization, doesn't talk about himself or herself. Let us give that person more work and more projects. So it will be taken care of. So that's, I think that's the crux of, I think, productivity is that how you can concentrate in terms of keeping your mind in the present, which means that you need to control your emotion. If you are an impulsive person, it could be difficult. So you need to control your emotion. And that happens when you become more and more rational. And how you can become more and more rational? You need to ask questions, never take anything for granted. That's how all the innovators invented wonderful things. So concentration, that's number one for productivity. One thing is consistency. Consistency of purpose. You need to have a common goal which you can focus on for the long term. Like, for example, Kirby, for you, you cannot have, okay, focusing on Sharpen podcast today, doing something else tomorrow. Then it will not help. You need to have, and I know you have been doing it for more than 4 years. So there is a consistency of purpose, and the result is Sharpen University, right? It wouldn't have been possible if you would have done 10 different things, right? But you focused on this project and now see how you have progressed. So consistency. And third thing I mentioned, teamwork, collaboration, cooperation. It is important. You need to help others, others will help you. So if you do these three things, along with communications, which I talked earlier, these 4 C's like concentration, consistency, cooperation, communication, you'll be successful whatever you do.
Oh, I love too how you summarize, you had your 3 Ps and now the 4 Cs, and it really helps us to kind of wrap our mind around some of these learnings. But what I hear, and I've had a mentor, Mitadru, that says, be where your feet are, referring to that present moment. And I hear that coming through with what you're saying in terms of productivity. You know, it's not, you need this certain notebook or you need a certain, you know, it is a mindset of being present where you are, which is such a good reminder, especially for our young professionals. So we have so enjoyed the time. This has been such a helpful, I mean, you've given us practical frameworks. I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing, your heart behind reconnecting with the universities and the organizations in India, as a way to say, and I heard you say it, you know, I am where I am today because of these teachers, because of these leaders. As we wrap up our time here, we always love to ask our guests 2 things. One is a shout out. So we would love for you to make a shout out to someone or a group of people today. We think it's so important to give recognition to those that are helping us along our way.
Sure. Since you're talking about career, definitely I want to give a shout out to Sukumar Shekhar. He was my manager's manager when I started my career in India. He is a great people's person, people manager, and I learned so many things from him directly and indirectly. Small things like how to manage Outlook, to most complex things, how to manage people you don't want to manage. So as a gratitude, I still have a folder in my email still today because he helped me a lot. So I still didn't delete that folder because that reminds me that how he helped me where I am today as a professional.
Oh, I love that range there of outlook to managing people. So, well, I hope he gets to listen to this episode to hear his impact on your life and your career. We would also love to hear a game changer. We joke that it can be anything from a food item to a conversation, and you've shared several of those with us today in terms of your career and your life, things that sent your path in another direction. But is there something else that comes to mind today that has been a game changer for you?
Sure. I left my first job in 7 months without having my second job, which I'm currently doing now in JP Morgan and Chase. And that 3 months of unemployment taught me the value of employment. Several things happened because there were days I did not have 3 meals. My mother was not well because she used to constantly worry. And I remember I appeared for 50 interviews and I was failed. So that period of 3 months was a game changer because that taught me I need to respect my job. It's much bigger than what I think I am, because there are so many people, especially in India, who are jobless. And here I am, I left something, I thought that I'll get another job so easily. So that really changed the way I approach work today, because to me, it's a gratitude, it's a privilege. So I need to give my best because I know there are other people who can do this job better. So I need to improve myself. So that has remained with me throughout my career, to respect my job from that incident of 3 months of unemployment at the start of my career.
Well, thank you for sharing and being vulnerable to share that story with us. That I think that resonates so deeply too with our audience. So, well, we're better for having you on Sharpen. I've loved the stories that you've shared, but some of the practicals. So, Mitadru, thank you so much for the work that you're doing and for joining us here today.
Thank you so much, Kirby, for your time, and thank you so much to all the listeners for
yes,
listening
thank
to
y'all.
us. Yeah, because these days you can do so many other things, but you stop doing all this and you listen to us. So that's a gratitude. So thank you for that.
Yes, yes.